Introduction. Welcome to the presentation by Professor G.GANTZIAS from Hellenic Open University at the 22nd Annual EEFS Conference Economics, organized by Department National and Kapodistrian University of Athens, the 14th to the 17th of June, 2024, Athens, Greece. The title of the presentation is Cultural Economy, Public Interest, and Artificial Intelligence, Digital Transactions, Blockchain, and Global Infocash. Outline of the presentation. The issues discussed in the presentation concern cultural economy, regulation, decentralized economy, public interest, and blockchain. The talk will focus on the notions of regulation of cultural economics, general interest, infocom chain networks, and artificial intelligence systems. The talk starts with an analysis of the role of regulation and public interest in digital transformation of cultural economy and blockchain, which is followed by the 5 types of regulation theories. Discussion concerning the regulation and blockchain platforms of cultural economy. Finally, regulation of cultural economy and the innovative regulatory model called Dynamic Product and Process Regulation, D2PR, will be discussed. Definitions of regulation, public interest, digital transformation of cultural economy, and AI robots. The third decade of 21st century characterized by a fusion of artificial intelligence and robots, blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres. The digital transformation of cultural economy, blockchain, and robots is a reality. Robots are able to acquire and process images, sounds, and speech by using artificial intelligence programs in a chaotic regulatory ecosystem in blockchain platforms of financial markets. Within this context, in the United States, the big tech companies manage to manipulate the cultural contents, financial services, and digital platforms which advertise its products and without any specific restrictions in order to protect the consumers/users' privacy and security in blockchain platforms of cultural markets. Regulation in blockchain of cultural economy and public interest constitute paramount issues for development of digital transformation in our everyday life. According to our research, the definition of regulation is to control by rule, to set up a framework of rules governing an area of activity in free market cultural economy. Perhaps the most common usage is state intervention in the running of cultural organizations in digital economy. That intervention by the state in private activity is justified in order to protect the public interest and privacy in blockchain platforms of cultural markets. The notion of public interest cannot be decided in advance, but depends on a given set of circumstances in the emerging artificial intelligence cultural systems. According to the International Encyclopedia of Social Science, the definition of public interest is very elastic and relative. It is deprived of an a priori content waiting to be revealed. It simply indicates that there exist some wider general considerations beyond the specific goals of interested parties. Challenges to cultural economy, blockchain, and artificial intelligence. In the era of digital transformation, cultural economy, public interest, digital currency, blockchain NFT, and artificial intelligence are challenging the role of transparency and accountability in a global market ecosystem. All countries around the world are today grappling with profound and, for them, unfamiliar issues of automated decision-making mechanisms in blockchain of cultural economy, i.e. NFT, and artificial intelligence systems. So, we can identify at least 6 main challenges to regulators of cultural economy in the era of artificial intelligence and robots. First, the termination of traditional transactions and regulation mechanisms to control cultural economy and digital currencies. Second, an invasion of artificial intelligence forces at financial markets, banks, and blockchain in digital transaction systems. Third, the shift from conventional decision-making policy to automated decision-making mechanisms in cultural economy and financial markets. Fourth, the unleashing of unprecedented competition for revenue both locally and globally. Fifth, uncertainties about how human decision-making will be affected by artificial intelligence and robots in banking organizations and financial markets. Sixth, radical uncertainties about likely shifts of human capital and robots in response. Nowadays, regulation is under pressure. First, from those concerned about regulatory mechanisms of cultural economy, financial markets, and artificial intelligence systems in blockchain platforms. Second, from those who see regulation mechanism as an essential tool for protecting the public interest and ethical standards. And third, from those concerned about divide and inequalities in the era of artificial intelligence and robots. 5 types of the regulatory theory: governments, big tech companies, regulatory mechanisms, and cultural organizations are increasingly recognizing the importance of regulating AI economic mechanisms, blockchain, and decision-making systems in a way that aligns with human values and cultural diversity in our democracy. Economists and political scientists had developed a number of different theories of regulation about as to why governments were so keen on the idea, what it actually achieved, if anything, and why it failed when it did. We examine and analyze the 5 types of the regulation theory in artificial intelligence era. First, public interest theory is about how to set up a regulatory agency to protect citizens' rights against the AI robots policymaking or the AI software programs in blockchain platforms. The state intervened in the economy to ensure that large businesses with monopoly or partial monopoly status in AI ecosystem did not abuse their powers and exploit consumers/users' privacy and security issues. Second, perverted public interest theory, or regulatory failure theory, tried to come up with some explanations of how the regulatory systems frequently failed to achieve their objectives in cultural economy and blockchain platforms. Third, conspiracy theories go much further than regulatory failure theories, and they focus on the closeness of big business interests to the political mechanisms and on the effects of economic power on governments in cultural markets and blockchain platforms. Fourth, organizational theories concentrate on the behavior of regulatory agencies as institutions. They recognize that organizations develop a life of their own, which is, to some extent, autonomous from both the state and the regulated industries. And fifth, the capitalist state theory of regulation focuses regulation as part of a wider political theory of state intervention in the period of digital markets, public interest in the era of artificial intelligence and robots, global regulation mechanism, cultural economy, and blockchain. This may involve global initiates such as a regulation of automatic digital transactions, ensuring the role of democratic mechanisms to control digital transactions in globalization, and the challenge to create transparency, accountability, privacy, and trust in decisions-making mechanisms both locally and globally. The definition of public interest is a very complicated process. Still, it is very beneficial to explain why regulatory agencies are very essential global actors to control artificial intelligence systems and robots policymaking in blockchain cultural markets. The digital content on the internet tends to be controlled under the law of the land on libel, defamation, obscenity, and so on. Different countries often have internet codes and complaints bodies, which are a form of self-regulation, but they do not have legal backing or statutory regulatory agencies to impose regulations on blockchain platforms of cultural markets. Our global regulation vision will motivate all countries around the world to bring into reality global regulatory mechanisms, artificial intelligence policymaking systems, universal public interest principles, and ethical standards to protect privacy and security issues in blockchain platforms of cultural markets. The model of blockchain and cultural economy, dynamic product and process regulation. Global regulation is a very complicated process, and the definition of universal public interest or general interest has to be clarified by the critical question: how do universal public interest principles and ethical standards work in practice? So the model dynamic product and process regulation, D2PR, is a methodologically useful typological distinction between measures designed to affect the processes of blockchain platforms in cultural markets and the way to be regulated. That is, its form and structure, and those intended to deal with what artificial intelligence software program produces as digital content or services to regulation mechanisms. For example, in regulating AI robots, this distinction corresponds roughly to that between rules governing the automated decision-making aspects of the AI system and regulation bearing on digital content created by human or produced by robots in free market economy. The value of the regulation is operating at the process and product level of regulatory agencies, using the term general interest to cover universal public interest principles and ethical standards both globally and locally. The term general interest is more digital communicative and less political, technological, economic, and cultural in character. The values of cultural economy and regulation. In the near future, regulatory mechanisms in cultural economy are likely to be the practical solution to overcome divides and inequalities by enforcing general interest principles in free market economy. Within this context, a regulating mechanism in cultural economy and blockchain requires a dynamic regulatory model that empowers regulators to use artificial intelligence and robot to monitor general interest principles in blockchain platforms of cultural markets, both locally and globally. There are 5 values by using the dynamic product and process regulation to develop in regulating cultural economy. These values are: first value, to create product and process regulatory mechanisms to evaluate regulators' activities in blockchain of cultural markets. Second value, to develop global public interest or general interest principles for transparency, accountability, trust, privacy, and security in blockchain of cultural markets. Third value, to furnish regulators with the pertinent digital skills they need at the right time and place by using digital regulation mechanisms of blockchain platforms in cultural markets. Fourth value, to identify problems or create solutions by using the model Dynamic Product and Process Regulation, D2PR, in blockchain platforms of financial markets. Fifth value, to activate global regulatory info-tom chain networks and global regulation mechanisms by using automated decision-making systems and general interest principles in blockchain platforms of cultural markets. Global regulation, public interest, blockchain, and cultural economy. How to create a global regulation in blockchain of cultural markets. First, one needs to grasp, i.e. regulators' global vision and policies that are able to activate an info-com chain network and AI system as dynamic. Regulators are able to acquire and process rules by using the methodology of product and process regulation in different blockchain platforms of cultural markets. Second, one needs to comprehend, i.e. regulators, activities in blockchain platforms of cultural markets that can enable regulatory info-com chain networks to examine, analyze, and understand the information collected in blockchain platforms of cultural markets both locally and globally. Third, one needs to act, i.e. a regulator can act through regulatory decision-making mechanisms such as automatic ones or undertake actions by using human decision-making info-com chain networks to implement practical solutions to regulatory challenges in blockchain platforms of cultural markets. According to our research, dynamic regulations, digital culture, and artificial intelligence, public interest and ethical standards. At the global level, the development of universal public interest or general interest principles relies on global cooperation, harmonization, and consensus without the use of coercive power. Nowadays, the protection of the public interest and ethical standards at global level relies on voluntary actions or international organizations. The values of business intelligence culture and blockchain platforms of cultural markets. Regulation of blockchain platforms in cultural markets is subject to business intelligence culture model and to infocom chain network mechanisms. According to the research, the DNA of culture, cultural management, artificial intelligence, and the global infocache, the cultural and commercial values generated and exchanged by the business intelligence culture model are fourfold in regulating blockchain platforms in cultural economy. First, the value of management cultural products, TVMCP. The first basic type of cultural value generated by the model Business Intelligent Culture, BIC, is the cultural value of management products and automated decision-making in business organizations' culture. For example, this cultural value contributes to develop long-term sustainable and competitive management cultural product mechanisms by introducing a infocom chain networks mechanism in cultural organizations, banks, and cultural markets. Second, the value of administration cultural processes, TVACP. The second kind of cultural value, which does not replace but adds to the previous one, is the cultural value of administration processes, which emphasizes the cultural organization's ability to be a dynamic administration engine for managing the process of organizing, planning, leading, regulating, and evaluating cultural products and activities in cultural markets. Third, the value of digital transformation in cultural strategies, TVDTCS. This cultural value primarily concerns cultural institutions and organizations belonging to the so-called infocommunication, infocom, strategic intelligence, which is typically connected to digital cultural production, to automated policymaking, and to digitization of strategies by using infocom chain networks mechanism. Fourth, the value of public interest and ethical standards, TVPIES. The final kind of cultural value relates to public interest principles and ethical standards. Public interest is common in everyday experience, but difficult to define at global level. Cultural and commercial value is very important to define in blockchain platforms of cultural markets in order to develop a global public interest principles and ethical standards in financial markets. So the richness of the four cultural values set out above confirms why public interest principles and ethical standards, together with self-regulatory mechanisms, must pay considerable attention to the proper definition and development of cultural and commercial values, coupled with regulatory arrangements to introduce accountability in blockchain platforms of cultural markets. Cultural economy and blockchain regulation. Infocom AI system and general interest principles. Regulatory arrangements in blockchain cultural markets do not arise in a vacuum, but evolve over a period of time and within the context of a particular set of political, economic, social, technological, and cultural determinants. Our strategy is to build a quality of life for people, to protect personal data, and regulate services in blockchain platforms of cultural markets by introducing 6 main general interest principles, which are: first, fairness, justice and law, infocom chain networks of legal mechanisms. Second, trust, reliability and safely, infocom chain networks of reliability mechanism. Third, personal data, security and privacy, infocom chain networks mechanism of security. Fourth, inclusive organizations, banks and business, cultural organizations, banks and business as part of free market economy. The emerging paradigm does not lack normative elements, but covers a wider range of public interest principles and ethical standards by using the model Dynamic Product and Process Regulation, D2RP, and the 6 main general interest principles to make accountable the blockchain platforms of cultural markets. Blockchain and database in the era of artificial intelligence. Within this context, it is important to understand the difference between the blockchain and databases in global markets. First, a blockchain is a database that contains all digital content of whatever it was designed to store. It is made up of a string of blocks of digital content that build on top of one another in an immutable chain. Second, database contains the history of whatever digital content it has been designed to store. What distinguishes blockchain from other databases is that its ledger is distributed, publicly available, and replicated on thousands of computers or nodes in the cyberspace. Banks and tech companies are centralized entities, and their databases are also centralized, accountable, and regulated. Blockchain operates as a decentralized financial system that is verified by a decentralized network of individuals. The mechanism of blockchain can be complicated. Therefore, it is helpful to conceptualize it as a kind of digital bulletin board that contains a sequence of digital content with few special properties. First, messages, once posted, cannot be removed. Second, messages, once posted, cannot be modified, nor can their ordering. Third, anyone can view the full contents of the blockchain, i.e., all messages. These simple properties enable surprising powerful functionality in decentralized economy and the domination of blockchain in cultural markets. Blockchain, NFT, and cultural economy, for instance, Bitcoin, Ethereum, NFT, etc., reside on blockchain. Users must employ blockchain-specific software known as wallet to buy, sell, create, and maintain possession of NFT, Ethereum, or Bitcoin. In the case of NFT, wallet software runs on a user device such as a mobile phone or a laptop and provides graphical interface through which the user can perform NFT-related transaction. The NFT consists the digital currency or digital asset in blockchain platforms of cultural markets. The blockchain NFT is a big challenge to cultural economy. The NFT focus mainly on art and gaming. According to Statista, the number of active wallets involved in NFT trading declined by more than 25% between Q2 2023 and Q3 2023. This is a notable decline from the end of 2021, when the number of users was estimated at nearly 2 million. NFT trading surged at various moments. The first moment, in 2017, was connected to the popularity of collectible crypto kitties, whereas the second moment, in March 2021, had to do with media reporting the largest NFT sales to date. Activity in August 2021 was likely caused by sales of Axie Infinity, an NFT game that got so popular in Southeast Asia, it even attracted the attention of the Philippine government. The model, Dynamic Product and Process Regulation. Case studies of regulation in the era of artificial intelligence blockchain should be subject to regulation in cultural economy. According to research, dynamic regulations, digital culture, and artificial intelligence, public interest, and ethical standards. It is important to point out that decentralization means a different type of centralization, in the same way as deregulation means a different type of regulation. Therefore, the decentralization of finance is a different kind of centralization that the blockchain platforms have to accept in global digital competition. The practical solution for blockchain is to develop a dynamic regulation mechanism, global principles of public interest and digital transaction governed by humans and not by robots. Within this context, I suggest a new type of mechanism in blockchain platforms, which I call it Infocom Chain Networks, I2CN. In our research project, we are in the process of collecting all necessary data to examine and analyze regulatory mechanisms in cultural and creative industries, education, manufacturing, business service, etc. The artificial intelligence and robots, together with quantum computers, are challenging the blockchain platforms in cultural markets by forcing them to be regulated. At the moment, the unregulated market blockchain platforms of cryptocurrency is very difficult to survive in time of energy and climate crisis. In addition, quantum computers, together with robots, are about to challenge irrevocably the future of cryptocurrencies or the existing mechanism of blockchain platforms in financial markets. Conclusion: blockchain and the model Dynamic Product and Process Regulation. Regulating blockchain platforms in cultural markets is a very complicated process. Still, it is very beneficial to explain why regulatory agencies together with the Infocom chain networks are very essential global issues to introduce accountability in existing mechanism of blockchain platforms in cultural markets. Our global regulation vision will motivate regulators to create global regulatory paradigm by using Infocom chain networks mechanisms together with the model dynamic product and process regulation in the era of artificial intelligence and robots. As a result, the advantages of the model dynamic product and process regulation together with the Infocom chain networks are: first, to engage regulatory agencies and Infocom chain networks mechanisms in the blockchain platforms of cultural markets, regulating Infocom content in the blockchain platforms of cultural markets. Second, to enable global regulation decision-making mechanisms in cultural economy, regulating Infocom devices by using Infocom chain networks mechanisms. Third, to digital optimize process regulation in cultural economy, regulating Infocom chain networks mechanisms by using general interest principle both locally and globally. Fourth, to digital transform product regulation in cultural markets, creating Infocom chain networks mechanisms of security in cultural economy ecosystem. References. For more information about product and process regulation, digital transformation, and artificial intelligence in Info Communication Society, look at the references of my publication about regulation, public interest, digital currencies, global info cash, cultural and commercial values, and Infocom economy.